Welcome. We're at the end of the day. Normally we don't do these podcasts this late in the day, but here we are, 4 o'clock. And as I was explaining, after this, I get to go to the dentist.
They're very nice.
Just wonderful. It's cloudy, it's cold, and I get to go to the dentist after a long day of work. So this is actually a pickup for me. I love coming in here and chatting with you guys. The fact of the matter is we don't get a chance to really talk anymore because of now we're talking over Teams and it's always business and stuff. So I catch up with you on this. But I think, Anthony, we need to acknowledge that we have a warrior in the room here, okay? Because Monet just finished a trial on a domestic violence case.
Oh, wow.
She got the domestic violence restraining order. And, is that a cause for celebration in most instances? Well, maybe, maybe not. Some are harder than others. Yep. And this one was a pretty tough one. And it was because of the fact that the victim was asked to testify in a criminal court proceeding. She was cross-examined by a prosecutor. A police officer came to the stand, made some statements, and a jury found that the guy was not guilty.
Oh, wow.
And so some people might say, well, let's not go forward with the family law case,
right,
because it's just going to be a repeat, right? And then she might have to pay attorney's fees and ruin her credibility in court. But Monet took this one and really worked it up. And I just want to acknowledge, what she did. She got the restraining order and was able to cross-examine an officer. We're not going to mention any names here. Not that I don't think it would be inappropriate because it's public record. But she impeached the police officer pretty severely, which is not easy, especially, in family court, because family court probably doesn't see police officers as much as in criminal court. And they're very likely to want to just listen to them and say, okay, that's gospel. Yeah. But you got the goods on this officer. This officer had been sued before, right?
That's right. Thank you, Don. Yeah, that's right. She had, and I was able to find it, and the judge allowed me to bring that up.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so the client is very relieved now that she's got the protection, and I'm just very proud that Monet went to bat for her, and that's what we call pursuing excellence, because it wasn't an easy. How many days was that?
We're still not done. So we have to go back for the court to finish its ruling on custody and things like that, just to make everything official. But when we go back, it'll be the 5th day. It's been half days, but yeah, yesterday was our 4th day, going back for 5th.
That's amazing. And when we say that it's not done, the restraining order was issued.
Right. Correct.
Okay, but we're going back for custody. And can you explain why the finding of domestic violence is important in this next hearing that you're going into?
So yes, the finding is important because now there's a presumption against the restrained party from having joint custody with the children. So that's going to definitely affect how much time he gets with the kids, and until he's able to show the court that he's changed and he's bettered himself.
Yeah. Well, it's just really good. The fact is that, a lot of people think that all of the trial work is done either in PI type of cases or in criminal courts.
Right.
And I like to think that now that I've been doing family law for about 20 years, that we do as much, maybe even more than most attorneys, even in those two arenas. In that type of a hearing, a 5-day hearing, usually like a misdemeanor jury trial, most juries, even felonies, your run-of-the-mill felony cases, they might take 4 or 5 days, but you got to carve out at least 2 of those days for picking a jury. Yeah. And then closing arguments. Typically, the evidence portion of it is that in 2 to 3 days, but you had 5 days of putting on testimony. Unfortunately, you had a really good judge there that I sat in and watched the beginning of it, and he was controlling the courtroom really well. And you went against a very senior attorney there too.
Yeah, really tough judge. He he takes notes. He understands the evidence. He actually listens, and he challenges you even in your closing, opening arguments. So,
yeah, one of the things that Monet said is that while she was making her closing arguments, the judge was stopping and asking questions and inquiring.
Don't you love it when they do that? When you prepared for a week or 2 on a closing argument, you don't even get to finish it?
Well, I hate that when they just cut you off. I hate
exactly.
that. But he didn't just cut her off, but he was, I think it's almost like needling. I don't know if it was, because he was enjoying the the analysis, but right, what was he doing? He was stopping you and asking you, well, in that picture, was her arm really red?
Right. No, he definitely let me finish, and he did the same thing to the opposing counsel. So it wasn't like, he was picking on me or anything like that. But yeah, I made a comment about how the restrained person was arrested, and he's like, well, that doesn't mean anything. Do you want me to make a finding based on the fact that he was simply arrested? I'm assuming there was no criminal conviction. And I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. And to the opposing counsel, he was making comments about the photos of the injuries. And the judge stopped and was like, really, counsel, you don't see any marks in this photo? Are you telling me you don't see any marks? And I mean, the guy didn't know what to say.
Yeah. So how did you recover when he interrupted you?
I said, no, I'm not asking you to make that, that leap. I think the evidence we presented during the trial demonstrated that she suffered injuries. We had an officer testify, and I think, looking at the evidence, we could see that there was clearly domestic violence within the definition of the family code, something like that.
So did you just stick to your outline and just pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I tried to as much as I could, but also like you could kind of tell like what he wanted you to talk about. So I think if anything, it helped me. I think it pushed me to talk more about the areas that he thought were weaker for our case. I think that's what he was trying to kind of do is, I'm having doubts about X, Y, and Z. So why don't you tell me what I should do with this?
Yeah. So going back to my days as a prosecutor, when you make closing arguments, the jury sits perfectly still, and they're usually like, sometimes some of them will kind of like lean and kind of, you could tell you got them in your pocket. Other ones, you don't, that you don't. I don't know if I've told you the story about this, but I had the biggest trial of my life. It was 7 weeks of a trial, right? And I had prepared for it for 2 months. It was a two-person first-degree murder,
Oh, wow.
two defendants. And at the beginning of the trial, there was a guy. His name was Mr. Rockefeller. They used to release their names. And he sat there, and I had my investigator next to me. And every time that I would say something, he'd nod his head up and down. And he'd have this look on his face. And I'd say something else, during either opening statements or and his head would even bob faster. And my investigator turned to me and he said, you got this guy in your pocket, man. You don't have to worry about him. Honest to God, by the end of the trial, anything that I said, he had his arms folded and he would shake his head like this, like that. And so I get up, during closing arguments, and this is like the trial of my life, man. I mean, these two guys murdered somebody, right? And I was very, into this case, obviously. So I walk up to the jury, and as I'm talking to them, I stand right in front of him, and he's still arms folded, shaking his head no like this here. And whenever I show him a photograph to demonstrate, you look at it and shake his head again like that. So I'm thinking, man, I'm in trouble because of this, what we call a wing nut, right?
Yeah.
So after the trial and the jury goes out, they were out for 2 weeks. Why do you think they were out for 2 weeks?
Well, probably trying to make him to
because of the wing nut, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what they do is they come back and they say, we want to kick him out of the room. And that's really a sensitive thing when you're talking about first-degree murder,
Yeah.
Because of a mistrial and stuff. And apparently, fortunately for me, Mr. Rockefeller was not a good game room player, and he wanted to be the foreman.
Right.
And they said no, and so he sat in the corner and refused to deliberate, and that's how we got him excused. And then there was a verdict afterwards. But I mean, I waited 2 weeks for that verdict.
Oof.
I'm going to tell you, man, that was scary. But anyways, my point of bringing all this up is that usually you don't have questions asked of you when you're making a closing argument. If there was one trial where, again, I think the judge was screwing with me because he knew, that he was screwing with me. So what he did is he allowed the jurors to ask questions during the presentation of evidence. And you'll see that sometimes, on a rare occasion. And it's weird, man, because it's like, oh, juror number 6 has a question for you, and stuff. And then actually, I think that the judge has to answer the question.
They don't put it on a piece of paper and then hand it to the judge.
It might be it, but
Okay.
you know who it was, though, right?
Right.
But in all the years and I've been doing law now for 28 years as an attorney, I've only had it a couple of times. But when I go into family court and the judge starts messing with me when I'm doing that, it makes me even more a better attorney, I think, because what you almost feel like an appellate attorney
Yeah.
because you have to stop and persuade and really be good on your feet like that, and stuff. So
When
good
you
job.
when you get to watch Supreme Court arguments and the way that the attorneys prepare a very well thought out argument, and they probably get maybe about 5 minutes into it, and then the questions start coming, right? And then they start to bob and weave, and that's kind of
Pivot.
pivot exactly, and they start, you know, moving in a way that kind of tries to address the issues that the court has. And I feel like a lot of that is what we do in family law because we get so much feedback from the bench when we're making our arguments about what they want to hear. So having that kind of flexibility, I think, is very important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I mean, family law attorneys don't get the respect that they should among the people that practice law because I can tell you, PI attorneys don't go to trial that much.
No, they don't.
There's some big firms that do go to trials and they get these huge settlements, but most PI attorneys settle cases.
Right.
But we family law attorneys. I mean, how many times have we been in court in the last couple of weeks? I mean, it's almost like 2 or 3
Every
times a
week.
week,
Yeah.
right?
Every week.
So, anyways. Today we're going to be talking about you again. We're going to start with you because Monet, you were the first one braving out there, I think, to go and get your vaccine.
No, I think it was Anthony.
You were the one. Well,
About the same time.
About
okay.
the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the
It
same
doesn't
time.
surprise me that Anthony would because he, he was the guy that had his mask on before anybody else, and stuff. And he's probably the safest person around the office that I noticed. So both of you have had it done, and from what I could tell, because I'm counting. I think that every attorney in this office has got vaccinated except for moi, and I'm getting mine on Sunday. So you're going to educate me and other people who want to know what it was like. How
Yeah.
did you sign up for it? What does it feel like afterwards? I know one of our attorneys, I'm not going to name her, but she's at home. She got hers last night, and I just teamed her. On the video, I called her and I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Oh, I got my shot last night,"
Right.
and she's looking horrible and stuff. So, first of all, how did it work? How did you get it? I mean, you got it
Yeah.
before I did. How did you do that?
So March 1st was the official start date for Phase 1B, which is Tier 1. And in that group, emergency responders, which includes first responders, law enforcement, and non-law enforcement first responders, which includes attorneys, became eligible for the vaccine. I had mine done previously in another group, just due to special qualifications, I'll just say. But the process was pretty much the same, as I understand, as when they announced that second group. I was vaccinated with the Moderna, both shots, at Lincoln Park, which is a kind of, it was almost kind of like an outdoor dining area inside of a park.
Were you eating when?
No, they had changed the entire facility.
They weren't
to,
serving food or anything.
No.
Okay.
The first time I went, it was about an hour wait, and then the second time was a little bit faster, about 45 minutes. And I had a pretty bad reaction to my second shot as
oh my
well.
God.
Yeah, I was breaking out in kind of fever. I had some shakes and I had chills. It was a rough day. I came to work, but I powered through it, and then I went home and I just completely knocked out. So
How long after you received the vaccine did you start feeling the side effects like that?
yeah, interestingly enough, it wasn't the first day. It was about the second and third day after that I really kind of felt it. The first time I got the shot, the first dose actually wasn't that bad. A little bit of soreness in the arm, but that was about it. Actually, I was making fun of my wife because she was saying she couldn't even lift her arm to put her shirt on, and then help her put it on. I was like, "Oh, you're such a baby." And then when the second shot came around, all of a sudden I'm like shaking in bed and I couldn't get out. So she was making fun of me about that as well.
You were literally in bed shaking.
Oh yeah,
my
I had
God.
I had a real bad time, and I'm actually not the type of person to get sick or have reactions. So I was a little bit surprised at how bad it was. I think it's different for everyone, but for me specifically, it was a little bit more extreme than I had expected. I know that there was an expectation that you might have some chills or a fever and things like that, but it was a little bit more than I had expected. It wasn't intolerable. I still think if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would absolutely do it again.
Sure. Okay.
But it was a little bit more than I think they made it out to be. Basically kind of like, oh, just take a Tylenol afterwards and you'll be fine. I think maybe if you have the chance, take a Tylenol and maybe take a short day. and go and take a nap and maybe get something get something hot to drink and just kind of relax because you're probably not going to be able to do very much.
Yeah, I get vaccinated every year with
Yeah.
the flu that I can, and this year Maria and I did. We got our shots, in the fall. Or was it the fall before? Maybe it was the fall before this and stuff. So, anyways, we do it, and I never feel anything other than that little pinch in your
Right.
arm, and that's what they made it look like. But almost everybody's describing how you feel afterwards. So,
Right.
what about your experience?
So I've actually just had the first shot, also Moderna. It was bad. I had so I think if I took time off, it would have been better. But it's funny,
That's not like
interestingly.
you though.
Interestingly enough, we were talking about that case. So I actually had I think it was day 3. It was different. So I got my shot on Thursday in the morning. The whole thing was pretty quick. I think getting an appointment is more difficult than actually going and getting your vaccine, which is a simpler process. I did mine through Carbon Health, through the website. Once we were able to qualify as special services, or I think emergency services, I was able to sign up. It was kind of like a miracle because I tried the night before and everything was booked. And I tried again in the morning. I was able to get an appointment the next day. So obviously I took it. I'm like, yeah, this is great. There was a long line when I arrived, but I was in and out of there in 20 minutes.
Wow.
I didn't feel anything, the shot, it was great. And then the first day was okay. The first night, fever, chills. I woke up in the morning and I'm like, well,
you guys are killing me, man.
I had so I had to do the trial in the afternoon. So I took a Tylenol and I was perfectly fine right after taking it. But then you have to retake it every 4 hours. 2 Tylenols, or else the fever will start back up. So I made it through court. It was about 5 p.m. I was driving home and it started back up. By the time I got myself home on Friday, I was shaky, chills, fever. That night I also had a fever. And then that morning I was perfectly fine.
That was your first shot.
Yeah. Which is weird because most people say that the second shot is what actually, it's worse.
Right.
But for me, I don't know why the first shot was bad. But if you take Tylenol, you'll be fine.
I'll say that she did a trial and she won the trial, even having taken the
Well, but
vaccine. So it
she's-
couldn't have been that bad.
She was young and healthy. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm going to go in there, man. I'm supposed to be working the next day.
Right.
I just don't want to go through the fevers thing, man.
The fever,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Also, I have to say, Dawn knows, but I actually had COVID in December. And some people say that because I had the virus, my body was, I guess, attacking it more when I got the vaccine. So that might have been why I had a bad reaction. But I don't
Okay,
know anything
I'm
about.
banking on that.
I don't
Okay.
know anything about
We need to
how
have
it works.
we have a
so,
guest doctor on here next time we talk about this.
yeah.
But you still have to
Explain
get
it
your
all to
second
us.
shot.
I
Yeah.
do. It's April 1st. So
Are you taking time off or what time of the what is
so
it?
I actually have a hearing that day, but I'm taking the shot after and then I'm going home.
Oh boy.
I might take the next day off
So-
just to be sure.
So you don't actually when they called me in for my second appointment, they don't actually give you a specific day that it's going to happen because it can be maybe a day before, it can be maybe a day after. They're not super specific on the exact 28-day timeline.
They actually stamped my card.
So they actually stamped yours. Mine, they sent me an email probably about 3 days before, and they said your second dose appointment is this time. And I was like, well, it's in the middle of the day, and I have work. But I managed to take a little bit of time off to do it. But
I
I wasn't able to plan for it. So fortunately, I got really lucky that I didn't have any conflicts on that day.
I think they changed the way it works.
Okay, good.
Because when you got it was earlier than when I did
Right.
it. I think now they either let you pick your second appointment online while you're making your first appointment, or when you go for your first, they stamp your vaccination card with the date for you to come back.
So attorneys, our friends out there in the community, what do we need to bring? You need your bar card, I guess.
You're honestly, I mean, it's pretty lax. Like some people said they didn't even ask what they did, but
Okay.
they asked me, where do you work? I said law office, and I just had my bar card and then just a letter from the firm saying, you won't need a letter because you owned a firm, but that you work at a law firm.
Well, this is kind of humorous. Is that Maria says, "Take this letter. You got to take it." And I look at it, and it's a memo from Justine, and it's not signed.
Who's your employee?
So, oh God!
That's
So,
actually what I had, and I told Maria that we should change it to add, at like so and so works here, and then have someone sign it.
when I got it, they were just trying to process people in and out so fast that they weren't. They were just kind of just looking very quickly, maybe 2 seconds, and just looking at the letterhead to see if it matched up with what you put on your application. But I didn't really get the feeling that they were being very strict about what the proof you were providing, even though you have it available. So
you didn't stay in the car when you did yours. You got out of the car.
no, I actually had to. Yeah, I had to get out and wait in line to do mine. Yeah.
And you did too.
Yeah, mine was not a drive-through, but one of our attorneys did a drive-through. So they literally give you the shot through your window.
Right.
And both of you had the same medicine from Moderna.
Yes.
Right.
Was there a choice?
So the way it works is if your appointment is at a hospital facility, a hospital has the freezers necessary for the Pfizer vaccine. So you'll likely get the Pfizer. My parents got the Pfizer vaccine. If you're at one of the pods, which are usually the parks or the I think the main Dodger Stadium vaccination site, you're most likely to get Moderna. Now, over the next couple weeks, the state's going to be getting more and more shipments of the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine. So we'll probably start seeing a lot more of those because those don't need to be as refrigerated at the same level as the Pfizer one.
Interesting. I'm going to Inglewood,
Okay.
and I think it's the sports center over there.
So you'll probably get Moderna, I think.
You think it's going to be inside the stadium?
That's a good question, but I'm also kind of curious to see what that's like myself. I had season tickets for this year. I wasn't able
You
to
did?
go.
Oh my
Yeah,
God. I've been dying to go in there when they have
Yeah.
a game, and stuff. Maybe I'll pick up a hot dog or something when I'm down there. So,
Not a bad idea.
I'm going to ask you this very tough question: how did attorneys get on that list? Right, you're in front of people that are 60 years old. How
Right.
did you get on that list?
If I were to guess how the decision was made to add us legal counsel to emergency services, I would have to say, because it does specify that it's because we have to deal with going to court. And I think I don't know about other areas of law, but I think public defenders, prosecutors, and family law, I mean, I had a trial the next day. So I think because we are in and out of court, even though they do have, remote options, a lot of times when you have a trial, you have no choice. You have to go in person. And I think because we're interacting with clients and offering services that I think are essential, restraining orders, domestic violence, I think those were the considerations that they had in mind when they added us to the list.
Yeah, I don't know about the two of you, but every time I go to court, I feel like, man, I'm taking a risk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because the courts are not that clean here
Right.
in Los Angeles, especially the central courthouse. You go in the men's bathroom and it's like, oh my God, man. And you've got people, although, they've done a good job of keeping it clear, but you've got people there that are not necessarily there to go to court. They're
Right.
there to just be in a warm place or something,
Right.
right? Or whatever. And that's why I think that it's we were exposed very much to the public. The courts did a fantastic job, I think, under the circumstances. When you go down there, they've put up the glass shields, and all of that. But there was no question in my mind ever that we are essential workers. And I know that I got a little flack from some people because when the first lockdown took place,
Mhm.
I said, hell no, we're open, and stuff. Now, as you guys know, we had a remote office the very
We did.
next day, and we abided by the rules, and we still do. But we're essential workers, and it's like nobody likes attorneys, so they're not gonna be talking about that on TV or anything. But the judges, they're heroes.
Mhm.
I mean, the ones that have to go to court every single day and sit there with the public like that, there was a lot of risk there, and our system has suffered. I mean, talk about the backlogs of cases
Right.
that we have now.
Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of trials were continued, a lot of hearings were continued, and those continuance dates that they were issuing probably near the beginning of the pandemic got continued maybe 2 or 3 more times. What we're starting to see now, at least when I was at court this morning, is those continuances coming due. So you're seeing maybe 14, 15 cases on the docket in the morning, and judges basically just really up to their eyeballs in recent filings, in really outdated declarations and stale income and expense declarations that haven't been updated during the pandemic.
Child
And
custody evaluations that are
Exactly.
outdated.
we have PPAs that are starting to happen again. I have one at the end of this month. And it's kind of just a little bit of a matter of getting up to speed, as it seems like the court is trying its best to get everything back and organized. There's a approximately 3-week delay in filing showing up in the court view system. So if you file something right now, there's no guarantee it gets in front of a judge at the time of the hearing. So
Seeing that a lot. You go
Yep.
in there and they're like, you filed what? And they question you about it. And you go,
Yep.
yeah, believe me, I
Mhm.
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously there's some growing pains in the back end that they're still working out. The remote audio listening program, which is supposed to be the way that the court has allowed the public access to hearings, the way that they used to be able to before the pandemic. I mean, there's still some issues with people.
Have you tried that?
I have, yeah. I haven't been able to get it to work on any hearing that I've signed up
Uh,
for yet.
Yeah, a little birdie told me you were trying to listen in on one of our hearings.
I
and
was,
stuff,
yeah.
so-
I try to get as much court time as possible. I mean, the part of the reason why I enjoy going to court so much is I just love hearing arguments on cases and hearing how different attorneys will address a different type of legal issue. And we don't get to do that anymore because really they want you in and they want you out as soon as your hearing is done. What I'm curious to see is how much of these changes are going to stay even after we start going back to normal.
I hope they stay.
Yeah, because I love the ability to log into a hearing in San Bernardino from my office here in Pasadena. I mean, and save myself an hour and 30 minutes of drive time and save the client an hour and 30 minutes of drive time and be able to litigate that issue. But I will still say being in court is probably the best way to get your case heard in front of a judge. And I think that's part of the reason why it was such a challenge, especially for attorneys, is because we're supposed to zealously advocate for our clients, even at risk to ourselves, to a certain extent. Where do you draw the line on what's acceptable risk in order for you to present the best case to the judge? Is it something where you're now putting yourself at possible exposure risk? Is that something you're willing to do? And to kind of have that weighing on your mind all the time during the pandemic was really difficult. So I do feel like having the vaccination now is really almost like a coat of armor, and you're kind of going into court with the same, I wouldn't say with the same free spirit, but not having to worry about that issue so you can focus 100% on
That's
your
cool.
client's case.
Do you feel
is-
that way when you're walking around in
Oh,
public?
yeah, absolutely.
You lucky dog, man. Look at you.
So that's why I'm saying you got to get your vaccine.
I'm trying, man. You guys keep sending me to trial. I can't schedule anything. You know what's you talk about, whether it's going to stay or not. This morning I had a hearing and it was in Orange County. Now, I don't do too many cases in Orange County because I really don't like to drive down there. I
Mhm.
mean, you get on that 57 freeway, the Orange Crush, and it's like your life is over with, right?
Right.
But I did this thing and it was on Zoom. It was the first time that I've been on video in court, and it was really interesting. It's like everybody's, including the clients,
Right.
they pop up on the screen here, and the judge I thought was like able to like get through those cases 3 times faster than if everybody was sitting in the courtroom.
Oh, yeah, because they take the time to drag all their files up to the desk and take
yeah,
forever
and
to
it was
set
like
up,
I
so,
like this.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that some of us might be better on the phone than we are in person when it comes to some things. Because I've had some spectacular results sitting in this room with Monet, dialing in, and I was appearing in front of the same judge that might have slammed me a week before when I was in front of her, and she give me everything when I'm on the phone. So, maybe I have a better phone personality, or
Right.
or maybe she doesn't like the way I look.
Right.
So that's one of my concerns about this video stuff. If I could just don't look at me, just listen to me,
I still like the ability if, say there's a missing page out of a page. Well, here you go, Your Honor. I have a copy for the court. You can't do that when you're on video or if you're on the phone.
Or if they don't have the file updated, like you were
Exactly.
saying.
And just those little things, those little frustrations that the court has to deal with can add up and can stack against your client. And just being there to take care of it, I think is a tremendous advantage over someone that's appearing over the phone.
Yeah, I used to be in the school that the other thing is they don't get to judge credibility by looking at people,
Right.
right? until recently I attended a seminar, the AAML seminar for specialists. And there was an expert that taught that we as human beings overestimate how much we're able to view credibility or judge credibility by looking at people.
Right.
In fact, a lot of times we're wrong, you know. So maybe, and he said the best way to judge credibility is listen to what they have to say, you know, and stuff. So I don't know. I've been in a courtroom ever since I was an adult, you know, either as a cop or as a prosecutor. And I love the drama of a courtroom. I can't imagine it being the same when you're doing it, you know, in your office. Now for hearings I love doing it here because, like you said, the driving to get that stuff in, you know, and the clients, you could take care of them better. You know, they sit, they can relax. You know, it's a less stressful experience for them. You couldn't have done that DV hearing, I think, you know, the same way you put it on here.
No, because we had a demonstrative chart and yeah.
Yeah, she had a chart of the laundry facility. It was a laundromat.
We've been doing a lot of those overhead
charts.
maps and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They play really well in court.
I think they do. You know what
Yeah.
was funny? Because we're the only ones that I know of that really introduced the demonstrative charts. And you and I did a trial.
We did.
And I remember the judge saying, "Well, you shouldn't be publishing that now." I was like, "You're the trier of fact for crying out loud, man." You know? But anyways, you know, they give you this a little bit of a hard time at first.
Right.
But what's interesting is as you're going through it, they start you're talking the testimony, they're looking at your chart when they're listening to the testimony and stuff. So, I mean, it really is there. It was a good thing.
Yeah.
How did it work for you?
He didn't give me a hard time. I think opposing counsel tried to keep it out of evidence, but I was able to get it in, and you know, once I laid a
What did opposing
foundation,
counsel say?
that the photos on the chart, he didn't know if they had been, you know, how recently they were taken.
Not relevant.
So the judge said that goes to maybe the weight, but not the admissibility of the chart. And as long as, you know, I talked my client through it, you know, are you familiar? You took these photos. And then she had drawn like a map, you know, from her memory because it was of a place that she was familiar with. So once I did the foundational part, we were able to get it in.
So did you do the house as well, or was it just
The house was just photos.
Okay.
The chart was just laundry. Yeah.
So what was interesting about your chart is that the video cameras that are present outside and inside the laundromat only covered a certain portion, and it didn't cover the area where the domestic violence occurred in there. And Monet had to demonstrate that with the chart. Did you walk up to the chart, or did you have to ask the witness to do it, or was there a pointer? Okay.
So I walked up, and the witness, I asked permission. She came up, and I had her place little sticky notes on.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I did a trial. That was a trial you and I did. It's like, no, you can't approach that chart. You know, it's like, oh God, man.
No, this was better than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that judge knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
He was a
he's
good
a
trial
great judge.
Yeah. All right. Well, getting back to our topic, is there anything else we need to talk about vaccines?
If you can get it, it's you know, they're slowly making more appointments available. Dodger Stadium is now, I think, a very widespread and widely available testing. Not a testing, a vaccination site now. So there should be appointments. I mean, obviously, I think there's still some difficulty in finding them, but if you're persistent, you can probably find one.
You know, the cases have dropped really
Yeah.
big time in LA County, and I see the spirit picking up. I definitely see a lot more people on the street, cars, businesses opening. You know, it felt like we would never get to the point where we're even here. I mean, we're not over with, but I mean, it's a good feeling. You know, I just, last year was really bad.
Right.
You know, I mean, the country hopefully is going to be picked up from this, our economy and everything else, you know, and it starts with this, is getting our shots.
You know, what's interesting is it's exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, I
Coming
told
up
my
on 1
daughter,
year.
I said, you know, you could criticize America for a lot of things. And last year there was a lot of turmoil, you know, and in my view, it was because of the hardships people were going through and the lack of leadership and things like that. But if you judge us as a whole, we had leaders out there that pushed us through. And I told my daughter, I said, we overcome stuff in America, you know, and I knew that we would get these vaccines a lot quicker than what they thought. because people were going to put their foot on the pedal and they got it done. And look at it, we got how many companies that now have it,
Right.
and there will be an abundance of this stuff, before you know it. So
I think
go America, yeah.
the expectation, I think, is we're going to move into red tier, which is
Right.
a big step in the right direction. I
Right.
think we've been in purple for
You could
almost
start
an
eating
entire year now.
in restaurants again.
I think so. Yeah.
Networking, maybe.
Possibly.
Okay,
Cautious optimism, I think, is probably the way that we should put it right now.
I'm
So.
crossing my fingers. Okay, guys, thank you very much. This was
Thank
awesome.
you.
Good luck with the vaccine.
Thank you.